Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. The radio and TV version of the show air in over 12 states. This includes both coasts and Silicon Valley. The show also airs in the UK, Caribbean, and Australia. For full show times, plus past episodes of the TV and radio show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. We just launched a free online community to connect past guests, listeners, and others. This community will allow you to network, chat on Slack, or get help with anything else, and a lot more. If you're interested in joining the community, buying some merch, sponsoring the show, or signing up for the newsletter, please go to buildingthefutureshow.com. The show is a proud media partner for the 11th Annual Media Excellence Awards, which are produced by Access Entertainment in Los Angeles, California. The Media Excellence Awards are recognized as the most influential awards show honoring innovation and leadership in all things mobile entertainment, lifestyle, and technology. For more information on how to submit to these awards, please visit mediaxawards.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Raji Wahidy. He's the founder and CEO of Virtual Rehab. Raji, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. Great to be on the show, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back on the show. I kind of like to have people I've had on the show kind of, again, I think I was looking, you haven't been on the show in well over a year now, and you guys are doing, well, you were doing some really cool things back then. You're still doing those things, but you guys have gone obviously a lot further, and I kind of want to cover your journey. But before we kind of get into all that new fun stuff, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Awesome. So I grew up in Montreal, Quebec. So I am Canadian. Have been actually several places, like the United States,
Sure.
In California.
Nice.
I spent a lot of time over there. I spent some time in New York. I spent time in East Asia, out of Singapore. I also lived in the Netherlands. So I've been fortunate to be going around the world and learning about new cultures.
Sure. So walk me through kind of your university career, because you went to kind of a bunch of different universities and took a bunch of different things. Do you want to walk us through that?
Absolutely. So I actually graduated from Concordia University,
Okay.
which is in Montreal, Quebec,
Yeah.
with a bachelor's degree of electrical engineering, majoring in telecommunications.
Okay. Was there a defining moment that made you want to kind of get into that, or why did you take that in university?
So I'll be very honest, I've always wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that did not work out. So I decided to basically go for electrical engineering. It was a hot topic back then.
Okay.
And I enjoyed telecommunications. So I said, the second best choice is to go for electrical engineering.
Okay. And then you went and got your master's, correct?
Correct. So I got my master's also from Concordia University in procurement and supply chain management and business administration,
Okay.
which was a new program back then. And I'm very glad that I actually went through that program as well.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So you've done a ton of stuff kind of after you graduated. You even kind of went back to school later on, but do you
Correct.
maybe want to walk us through kind of your career up until founding Virtual Rehab, maybe some career highlights along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So to your point, I did go back to school and I finished my doctorate in organizational leadership, so
Okay.
management. It's all about psychology, which is very close to what we're doing right now
Sure.
at Virtual Rehab. But when I went out of Concordia University, graduated with my bachelor's degree, I actually joined Ericsson Research Canada
Sure.
out of Montreal, Quebec. I joined in as an engineer. So I was a geek behind computers, trying to fix the networks and help customers, and progressed my career through the management chain. Before that, and I was headhunted by Vodafone,
Oh, sure.
which is the largest telecommunications company in the world.
Sure.
And my last post with them was their global vice president of business operations out of New York.
Very cool.
So it was a great experience. All along, I was also an active volunteer with the United Nations and UNICEF.
Okay.
So I was dealing a lot with vulnerable populations. Again, a strong link between that and virtual rehab.
Sure.
And I was fortunate enough, Kevin, to also launch a couple of ventures. One of them was called Amalana, which was a global networking services.
Okay.
And that exited successfully on August 2012.
Nice.
Ultimately, I wanted to do something that made an impact in people's lives.
Sure.
Due to my work with the United Nations and UNICEF, and that's how we came along to virtual rehab.
Okay, so what exactly is virtual rehab, and what was kind of was there a defining moment or moments that made you decide, you know what, I really need to kind of found this company and just kind of go for it?
Love that question, and it's a great question. Absolutely, there's a defining moment. As you probably know, and a lot of our listeners know, we have a big problem when it comes to those who are convicted spending a lot of time in prison.
Sure.
But not only that, but we have a huge problem when it comes to opioid and addiction problem.
Yep.
So we needed to do something, especially that, the statistics were playing against us. For example, when it comes to prisons, 66% of released prisoners go back to prison within 3 years.
Wow, that's sad.
Then very sad. And then 75% of them go back to prison within 5 years' time. So we clearly have a huge problem that we need to fix. Okay. And then when you look at addiction, unfortunately, we have similar statistics, if not worse. We have globally 39 deaths per 100,000 populations that are attributable to alcohol and illicit drug use.
Wow. Moreover,
drugs and alcohol, Kevin, relapse statistics may reach up to 90%, that's 90%, following a period of recovery.
Wow.
So we do have a problem, Kevin, that unfortunately, especially when it comes to addiction, we seem to be replacing one addiction with another.
Sure.
We give patients medications, and unfortunately, they get dependent on this medication.
Sure.
And we forget to treat the mental health issues and the psychological issues that these folks are going through.
Okay.
This is the same for released prisoners. They go out in the public, and unfortunately, they don't know how to integrate with society. Right. They don't know what to do, where to go, and how to lead a healthy life. And unfortunately, that's why they recidivize and go back to prison. So at virtual rehab, that's exactly what we try to tackle. Okay. And that's the focus of everything that we've been doing. So virtual rehab is an evidence-based solution. And the reason why I'm saying an evidence-based solution is because researches have been conducted by leading universities around the world, along with the fact that we have ourselves conducted further pilots and rollouts to customers.
Okay.
In order to prove the efficacy of our solution.
Sure.
Okay. Which actually resulted in 87% of those folks who went through our program showed an improvement across various metrics that we have used. Okay.
What are those metrics, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, absolutely. So those metrics focus more on psychological behavior.
Okay.
And they focus a lot on how do you behave with the environment that is actually surrounding you.
Okay.
Okay. If you actually give me a moment, I will tell you exactly the 7 metrics that we measure them against. So, 1, we focus on problem recognition and acceptance. 2, openness to change. 3, locus of control. 4, decision-making influences. 5, emotional intelligence and regulation,
Okay.
and last but not least is motivation and resilience.
Okay.
And of course, under each category, there are several metrics which our physicians and therapists helped us define and measure against those metrics accordingly.
Okay, interesting. So, how did you guys kind of get, your technology actually used by, obviously like people in kind of in prison and whatnot, and kind of how did you actually convince them to start trying your your program?
It's a great question because it wasn't easy. Let's just put it that way. It wasn't easy at all. So
Sure.
especially the solution that we're providing, or we are providing actually, is based on virtual reality and artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Up till now. And of course, what we will be discussing is the integration of blockchain that we're going to embark on. But virtual reality, Kevin, whenever we initiated a conversation with the customer, they always thought about, games.
Yeah, totally.
And for good reason.
Sure.
Yeah, for definitely good reasons. That's what's been consuming the industry so far. However, like we discussed last time I was on the show, people tend to forget that virtual reality was actually used back in '94.
Sure.
By Kaiser Permanente when they used it with acrophobics, so people who are afraid of heights.
Interesting.
And that was over 90% successful.
Sure.
Then they went on to use it with military combat personnel who returned from Iraq and Afghanistan with PTSD problems, so post-traumatic disorders.
Sure.
And that was, again, over 75% successful. So the moment we have these conversations, initially they had the typical customer does not have a clue about that. But this triggers their interest.
Sure.
And then we start discussing how, if we're talking in a prison environment, how we can actually help those inmates once they're released to lead a more productive life and reintegrate better in society. And we show them several scenarios of our product because we're not actually an MVP, which is a test product. We are actually rolled out completely.
Right.
So we have several product suites. And if it's an addiction or a rehab center or a hospital that we're speaking with, we'll also describe to them how we provide certain triggers to the patients and see how they respond to these temptations. Now, what's interesting also, Kevin, is that we've been exposed to other markets. So we had conversations with the Canadian Space Agency, who have been thinking of using virtual reality for astronauts.
Sure.
So the market is quite open. We've been also using the solution for pain management, and that's why we say we deal currently with pain management, prevention of substance use addiction, and rehabilitation of repeat offenders.
Okay.
Having said that, we're not limiting ourselves to the market because the market is quite huge.
Sure.
And wherever we're going to see an opportunity for a psychological healing, we will be jumping in there.
Okay, interesting. So do I, like, use myself as an example? If I'm struggling with something, maybe like some sort of addiction or trauma or something, can I just like go to one of the app stores, download this and start using it in my VR headset? Or do I need to be in some sort of treatment program?
Fantastic. So up till today, our business has been a B2B business, which is business to business environment. So we would sell it to hospitals, rehab centers, departments of corrections, and then they would deal directly with their clients or their patients.
Sure.
The interesting part is that we've seen a lot of demand, a huge demand from the public for using our services. And that's why we decided to integrate the blockchain technology, which would provide ultimate privacy and security of all the data and all the information being submitted by those vulnerable populations. We have to remember that most of the information about these folks is available publicly,
Okay.
And unfortunately, it exposes them and prevents them from progressing within their lives. With
Okay.
blockchain, we're changing this completely. Because of its decentralized model, we are actually allowing these folks to submit all requests to us without identifying their name,
Okay.
without identifying their location, without having any sort of information about these folks.
Okay.
And then they can access our online portal, download the programs that they wish, and run them and execute them and go through the experience. All what they will need is to have their own headset,
Okay.
or VR system, virtual reality system. And moreover, what we're doing, Kevin, is that we're allowing them to use what we call a VRH token. So
Okay.
that's virtual rehab token. It will be available on exchanges, but we're also doing a private sale and a pre-sale and a main sale, which I'm sure we'll discuss later on.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
But not only will they be able to download the programs, after the execution of the program, they will be able to request further analysis of the results that have been achieved.
Interesting.
And then we will use our artificial intelligence system, which is a unique expert system that we have developed in order to basically identify areas of risk,
Okay.
make a recommendation for the sort of treatment that the patient should be leading, along with any prescribed medication.
Okay.
Okay. Since research actually, and the FDA, Kevin, has recently released a report saying that using an app, and we're talking only about an app here,
Sure.
along with medication, results in 40% increase in the avoidance of relapse versus the traditional 16%. So
Interesting.
imagine bringing virtual reality and artificial intelligence into the picture. The results are augmented by a lot, which is exactly what we've seen with the 87% improvement.
Okay. So
And last but not least, sorry to cut you off.
Keep going.
The last point is that with the VRH token, we're doing something quite unique here. If the patient actually proves to us that they have went ahead and sought counseling and medication, we will reward those patients with VRH tokens, which they can claim straight from our online portal and use to either sell on exchanges and get money. So we're rewarding them with money, or they can actually use those tokens to download further programs or request further analysis.
Okay.
And that was the last one.
No, interesting. Okay, so I want to get into the tokens in a second, but
yeah,
I have a question about what hardware do you guys kind of support at this point?
So we've been supporting all along HTC Vive. So we've been using the HTC Vive. However, given the fact that we're going mainstream right now, we will be supporting all kinds of devices, as long as the device actually provides a good experience and is efficient. Because as you can appreciate, Kevin, we're dealing with vulnerable populations. We're dealing with patients. We don't want them to hallucinate. We don't want them to go through a bad experience. So the device must meet our standards in order to actually go forward with it. But we'll definitely go beyond the HTC Vive in the near future.
Okay. Are you going to ever go on to something like Google Cardboard or Daydream, like the cheaper kind of headsets?
So we're looking forward to Google actually doing an improved version of their Cardboard.
Sure.
We appreciate that it's affordable, and we think it's a great device. But we're definitely looking forward for them to enhance it even further in order to have a much better experience.
Okay. No, that's fair, because I noticed, like, you obviously you can buy like a third party kind of controller that like Bluetooths to your phone for cardboard,
Correct.
but like it's kind of hit or miss at best. Daydream's still around $100, so and it comes with a remote and it works pretty good, but I can see like just comparing it to the Vive or the Oculus, like it's kind of night and day a little bit, right? Daydream's closer, but still, right? So
it is. Yeah, definitely. Spot on and a great comment. I'm sure they will improve it. I'm sure Google is a huge organization that will work on this.
Sure.
And our aim is to make it as affordable as possible. So we appreciate that HTC Vive is also on the pricey end.
Sure.
So we want to make it available to those to the masses. And we want to ensure that the device is affordable, and that's why we're going to consider further devices.
Sure. No, that makes sense. So I want to dive a bit deeper into kind of the coin, the token that you mentioned. What exactly? Yeah. Well, you kind of give a bit of a overview of it, but what exactly is it, and why did you guys kind of decide to go about actually offering it?
Great question. So the reason why we've decided, I'll start with that,
sure.
Is because back to the point, we want to go mainstream.
Okay.
So we want to reach out to the masses. Again, we've seen a huge demand for our services from the public. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, up until this point, we couldn't do it. We strongly believe that now with blockchain technology, we will be able to, A, provide our services, B, which is more important than A, to be very honest with you, is provide the security
sure.
and the privacy of the information. So we didn't want to take this step before because we didn't know what's the best route to lead. Sure. But now that we've done plenty of research and we believe that blockchain technology is the way to go with this. Yeah.
No, okay. No, that makes sense. So how does it kind of work if I have a headset that you guys support and I kind of want to get started with something? Like, can you walk me through kind of that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So all you need is obviously the headset sure. and to have the VR system, as we say, virtual reality system. And then once we integrate the blockchain technology, we'll be able to log onto the online portal,
okay,
Virtual Rehab's online portal, and download the program onto your PC. And your PC needs to be, or a computer, I should say. Your computer needs to be of high standards, high graphic cards,
sure.
And it's capable of supporting a virtual reality system. Unfortunately, it does consume a lot of power.
Sure.
So that's why you need a pretty strong computer. And then once you download that, you just run the program, put on the headset, and go through the experience from beginning to end.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, we're capturing information and detail about the experience that you're going through and the decisions that you are making. At the same time, currently in centers, we measure heart rate, blood pressure, things that actually could help us more when we're using artificial intelligence to predict the behavior or your behavior
okay.
in the future and how you would react to it accordingly.
Okay, so if I have it up and running and I'm in this virtual environment. You kind of touched on it quick, but like, what am I doing, or does it really depend on what I'm getting treated for?
We have customized
okay.
treatments
okay.
based on the issue on hand.
Okay.
What you're doing within the environment that you were being exposed to certain triggers.
Okay.
So the common theme, Kevin, that we have across all our programs is that we focus a lot on cognitive behavior and exposure therapy.
Okay.
So what we expose the patient to things that they fear, things that they have been doing and find it difficult to stop doing, we focus on what are their priorities in life. So, for example, for those who leave prison, one of our programs tries to educate them on the ways of life. What are your priorities in life between family or love or friends or what have you? And then we give them several points, and they assign these points to the values.
Okay.
And then we ask them to go out in the environment and look for certain chests. And
Okay.
within these chests, there are additional values that they will find and try to collect. And whenever they find these values, Kevin, they will be given additional points.
Okay.
Then they would go on to actually, we try to gamify it in order to make it more entertaining, because we don't want to have the pressure of, the constant pressure of questioning that they go through right now in a rehab center, for example.
Okay.
So we make them, for example, throw a pebble into a basket.
Okay.
And if they successfully throw the pebble into the basket, another theme or another priority is shown, and they get points for that.
Okay.
And then the last step of the program would be to actually have a one-on-one therapy with a blackboard, for example.
Okay.
They would be asked, for instance, what will happen to you in case in 5 years' time you do not change? How will that impact you from a financial perspective, from a family perspective, from a psychological perspective, and what have you? And
Okay.
every single response, we give them like 20 seconds.
Okay.
We record these responses, and these responses can be used further by therapists to have a meaningful discussion.
Okay.
We find that better than actually having a therapist putting you in a chair and questioning you and feeling the pressure of saying the right answer, or else you're in big trouble.
Interesting. Okay. So how long, well, I guess it really depends, but like how much to kind of a time commitment is it per session, like kind of weekly? How does it kind of work?
Okay, so how long first? There's two bits of the question here. That
Sure.
How long does the program actually take to execute?
Sure.
And you're absolutely right. That really depends on the individual. It could take between at least it would take 20 minutes, and it could
Okay.
take up to an hour.
Okay.
It really
Sure.
varies. The second part of the question, which I forgot. What
Sure.
was the second part?
Like, okay, so like if I'm in this 20 minutes or an hour,
Oh, yeah.
is it like three
Yeah.
times a week? Is it once a month? Do I just do it
Correct.
once? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, correct. So what we've been doing so far is that we are recommending that this is something that has to be executed on 30 different sessions, 30.
Okay.
And we always say that it is recommendable to have a 1-day break between one session and another.
Okay.
And we also advise that these sessions should not last for more than 45 minutes.
Okay.
And that's medically proven that it should be between 30 and 45 minutes that a patient goes through the experience, because of the fact that unfortunately this may result in a hallucination.
Oh, interesting.
Because you're actually in a virtual environment and you're completely disconnected from the world, so you don't want them to stay there forever.
Sure.
And two, if the program is poorly done, which is not our case, but just to highlight, it could result in nauseousness.
Sure. Okay.
And this
Yeah, fair.
nauseousness is really bad.
No, fair enough. And anybody that's kind of followed the virtual reality space, that was actually like a huge issue with some of the early headsets, right? Like that was years
Definitely.
ago, but like even I had experience with that, like where if I was on like a roller coaster, for example, I'd be fine. But if I was like walking around just in a village, I would feel so nauseous. It was weird. So I know exactly what you mean. And anybody that tried some of the earlier headsets will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Totally, absolutely. Especially those rides, Kevin. There were a couple of rides, apps for rides
Sure.
and roller coasters, and they were, unfortunately, they were horrible, and you would feel like you want to throw up.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So,
Yeah.
I'm curious though to maybe step back a little bit. Maybe my own fascination is we haven't talked in just over a year now. Where walk us through kind of your journey of where you kind of were a year ago to where you are now, because you guys have grown a ton. You've added a bunch of stuff. You guys are adding in blockchain and doing this kind of token sale, and we just talked about that, but walk us through some of the other kind of big kind of milestones that you guys have hit since we last chatted.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for raising this. I'm very glad and pleased to say that after such a long time since we last caught up, and thank you for this opportunity once again, we've had major successes to mention.
Okay.
So first of all, from a product perspective, as I mentioned, our product is an evidence-based solution now with proven efficacy results that are approved not by Virtual Rehab, but by physicians, psychologists, and therapists, which is huge, very important, especially in this market. And then again, the 87% of participating patients who have shown an overall improvement across the metrics or the categories that I mentioned earlier was also a major accomplishment. So from a product perspective, we're very, very satisfied, and we're hoping that the integration of blockchain will allow us to do more, and also we'll keep on improving our own solution and our artificial intelligence solution. So that's from a product perspective, Kevin.
Okay.
Now, from an achievement, recognition, and rewards perspective, I'm just going to mention a couple of them that we've attained over the past several months.
Sure.
So one, Kevin, we were described by the United States digital government head, his name is Justin Herman,
okay,
as a capability, I quote, a capability that is very, very promising for public services. And that's coming straight from the U.S. government.
Very cool. Congrats, man. That's
so,
huge, actually.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Kevin. Second achievement that we've had is that we were the only virtual reality artificial intelligence company that was included in the United States Department of Justice Institute of Corrections environmental scan report.
Very cool.
So that's another achievement that we're extremely proud of. We were able to partner, Kevin, with several organizations across North America, Europe, Middle East, and the APAC region. For example, the United Arab Emirates actually reached out to us. A lot of those partners reached out to us and told us, we like what you're doing, and we'd like to take it to your market. Does it mean that we're in every single market? The answer is no.
Sure.
But it means that we've placed a footstep in the market, and it's a matter of time when we actually enter and start expanding even further.
Sure.
The next couple are dear to my heart, being Canadian. So sure. I'm very glad that we are the only company that represented Canada as part of the Canadian delegation to Arab Health in Dubai.
Oh, very cool.
Last year. So, of course, there were Canadian companies on the ground, but we're the only ones who actually went from Canada and represented the Canadian, represented Canada over there.
Very cool.
We were also, Kevin, selected as one of Canada's most promising high-growth life sciences companies, and we were invited to the Dose of the Valley, which is in California, San Francisco, and we were recognized over there for what we've accomplished, and that's huge.
That is huge, actually. That's really great, man. Congrats on all that.
Thank you. And also, we were featured by Microsoft leadership team at the Microsoft Inspire Innovation Session last year.
Okay.
So they spoke of virtual rehab and the fact that we're leading a transformation, and we will hopefully make an impact into this world. we were nominated by the Wall Street Journal for the D-Life Startup Showcase, which happened in Laguna Beach, California.
Very cool.
We were ranked by the Spanish media as the first option for training correctional officers and rehabilitation of offenders using virtual reality.
Sure. Very
And
cool.
last but not least is that we were featured by the media across over 28 countries around the world.
Wow, that's great, man. Congrats on all that. That's huge. That's a huge year, right?
Thank you, Kevin. We're still having our baby steps. I think next year will be even more transformational for us.
Yeah.
But we're definitely very happy for what we've accomplished so far. And honestly, it's thanks to people like yourself, Kevin, who are helping us reach more audience and expanding our mission to more people.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm curious though. You mentioned something just with when you mentioned Microsoft. I got thinking about they're building that AR headset. Do you see you guys ever moving out of, or maybe not out of VR, or like offering some things in kind of augmented reality where you're basically adding digital objects in the physical world through a headset? Are you guys ever thinking of doing something like that, or it doesn't really make sense for what you guys are doing?
No, the answer is actually you probably read our business plan. So the answer is yes. Sure. We're looking into that at the same time. We're parking it for now because we're focusing on trying to penetrate one market at a time. But the virtual reality and augmented reality are closely linked to each other, as well as mixed reality.
Okay.
So we realize there's a need, and actually customers have told us that there's a need for that. So absolutely, and it will be coming hopefully in the mid to long term.
Okay, because I guess part of me says that, like, I know Microsoft hasn't launched their headset yet, but in some cases, like, I would be shocked if they wouldn't like kick you guys some money and say, help bring that onto their platform, right? Because I think, to your point, kind of early on, I think a lot of these kind of headsets are kind of known for gaming and kind of nerds. And sure, like I would put myself in that boat. Like I have my own kind of headsets, and we have a couple at work, and I play with them, to play games. I've, built some software around it, but I think it's going to become more and more kind of mainstream, and more people are going to use them for other things outside of than just gaming, right? And so I think getting the public kind of used to the fact that, you will probably try one for a handful of different reasons throughout your kind of probably life, kind of either immediately to within probably the next 3 to 5+ years, you'll probably start seeing them kind of all over the place.
I agree, totally. So the good news is that we've actually had conversations with Microsoft, and they have been extremely supportive, especially the head of government services, and they see us. Well, that's one of the reasons they promoted us also as part of the Inspire session, which is basically where all their suppliers come into a single meeting and discuss things together. So we've had initial discussions. We're looking forward to resuming them in the future.
No, that's fair. I totally get that. And you got to kind of focus, right? So I'm curious, though, obviously, we talked about kind of the cost of the hardware, but there's got to be a huge cost to kind of build this stuff and kind of keep it current, because with anything technology, you're basically on a yearly cycle of new stuff coming out. How do you guys kind of keep what you guys are doing kind of relevant and still kind of working on kind of older and newer headsets?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So just on the point of cost, you're absolutely spot on. The development is quite expensive.
Sure.
The headsets back in '94 were extremely expensive, which was prohibitive for them to enter the market. And now, luckily, everything got reduced. Now, what we offer, Kevin, is you'll be happy, and our listeners would be happy to know that it's a fraction of the price
Sure.
that is being paid in a rehab center, or even the cost that it takes for a prisoner to stay in a prison environment or in a jail.
Okay.
We spend a lot of money on inmates and prisoners in jail. And unfortunately, when they go out not fully rehabilitated, we spend even more money when they return.
Sure.
So we're able to do that at a fraction of the price.
Okay.
A lot of our programs can be used for multiple customers. However, we try as much as possible to tailor each program to the customer needs and specific situation.
Sure, which makes sense, right? That's just like any treatment. Like you and I aren't going to get the same treatment for something because we're not the same person and we didn't have the same experience. They might be similar, but quite different, right?
Precisely.
Yeah. Okay,
Spot on.
makes sense.
So yes, we try to customize it as much as possible. The only programs that we share are the ones that are generic.
Sure.
That share, what are the true values that you should have.
Okay.
That's a common theme across everyone. So we share that, but everything else is customized. I don't know if I answered your question. Does that actually answer your question, or is there a second part?
No, I guess just like how big's your software team then?
So we have several folks. So we're a team of 10 currently.
Okay.
And we also have partners.
Sure.
That help us in case there's a big workload. And these are trusted partners that we've worked with in the past, and we'll continue our partnership throughout.
Okay. No, very cool. And then, so I guess I do want to dive a bit deeper on the pricing side for kind of institutions. Like you mentioned that it's a lot cheaper, but like how much cheaper is it than kind of traditional kind of rehabilitation?
Let's put it this way. Obviously, the price is not fixed because it varies on the institution, the size of the institutions, and how many patients. Having said that, the typical price is once we assess the market is pretty much 10 to 15% of what they pay right now.
Okay.
Which would bring a lot of savings to them, because all what we charge for is the hardware, which is a third party. Then we charge for our software license.
Okay.
And then we charge for basically the actual programming that is required. And last but not least, any support that we need to provide, depending on the level of support, then we provide a charge to that. But all in all, that costs, we typically request from the customer what are they spending as of today, along with market research, and we provide them at typically 10 to 15% of that cost.
Got you. Okay. So I know we kind of covered this throughout the show a little bit, but like, where do you guys go from here? Because you guys are doing a ton of stuff. You're obviously breaking into new markets. You're getting recognized for that. But where do you guys kind of see this going in the next few years? And maybe not necessarily just with you guys, but kind of the whole VR, AR kind of space.
So I think we will have a very bright future when it comes to VR and AR space, Kevin. If you actually look at several statistics that are out there and researches that have been conducted by, Goldman Sachs, global industry analysts, and even Allied Markets Research, you can tell that the future is virtual and augmented reality, and obviously blockchain. Blockchain is huge right now. Everyone is in blockchain. There are a lot of doubts. There are a lot of regulatory issues that we need to fix, and it will get fixed. But the technology is not going anywhere. Market is crashing. I know a lot of the listeners are like, "What are you talking about? Market is in the loo." But you know what? It is what it is. This is what happens when a product is not mature. It's a high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
Once we get to the point where everything is stable, it will become the stock market, and we won't see, the 1,000% increases and what have you. So with any typical cycle, it needs some time before it stabilizes. Now, why VR and AR is the future? It's because it is estimated, Kevin, that by 2025, the VR AR industry will be an $80 billion industry.
Wow.
Okay. And 5.1 billion out of that will be focused on healthcare, which is fantastic.
Yeah, wow.
Okay. That's
great.
Obviously not a huge portion, because a lot of it is going to still go to gaming. But, a 5.1 billion is a fair share out of 80 billion.
Sure. Yeah, that's huge, right?
Absolutely. And when you look at the cumulative annual growth rate for virtual reality over year on year, it's 73%. So we're definitely heading in the right direction. Add to it artificial intelligence and blockchain technology, and you can augment this by even more.
Sure. No, I 100% agree. I think we're just kind of at the beginning stages of this stuff, and I think it's interesting because, why I think people nowadays are busy, they're traveling, they're either maybe they don't have time or want to make the time to actually maybe go to a certain thing, but they want kind of help with something. And if they can just kind of do it at home for 20 minutes for a couple of months, you could help a lot more people than kind of, I think, the traditional system. And I'm not saying that I like the traditional kind of, you go and talk to somebody in person, face to face, will go away, because I don't think it will, at least maybe in my lifetime. But I think just having the ability to actually have, like something like you guys, where I could get help, and then maybe I have to go see somebody once or twice or whatever, right? Just, I think will help a lot, right? Or help a lot more people with maybe just kind of more mild cases of things that they're struggling with.
Totally. And just to support that even further, when you look at the older generation, once you get older, your mobility becomes less and less.
Mm-hmm.
However, that doesn't stop you from wanting to travel, to see new places, to experience new things. You'd be surprised. With virtual reality, we can take them to these new places, make them experience all of this. And psychologically, it helps them big time.
Sure.
No, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Keep going. Sorry,
Kevin. Can I just backtrack a little bit, because I spoke about our awards, but I didn't speak of the awards that are advisory board, because we have an amazing advisory board, and I think it's worth mentioning the awards that they received over the past couple of months.
Sure.
We have a couple who, the first one is Phil Fasano, who was the ex-CIO of Kaiser Permanente.
Sure.
A huge medical group in the United States. He was also, end of last year, inducted into the CIO Hall of Fame, which I had no clue that it existed.
I had no idea either. That's very cool, though.
It has apparently the best or the top 100 CIOs from around the world.
Wow.
So we're very fortunate to have him on our advisory board.
Yeah, that's a huge deal, actually.
It's definitely a major accomplishment for Phil, and we're very proud of him and proud to have him on board. And the other accomplishment that one of our advisors has realized is Dr. Jeff Pfeiffer, who's Canadian based out of Australia.
Sure.
He was the 2017 Global Research Award recipient for corrections.
Oh, very cool.
So 2 major accomplishments that we're very proud of, and I think, if anything, speak for the amount of experience that these folks bring to the table.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. But we're out of time. So let's maybe close the show with mentioning where people can get more information about all the stuff we kind of talked about today and virtual rehab.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity once again.
Of course, man.
Love being on your show. I guess a lot of the information that you can now get about virtual rehab is, please go to our website. Once again, it's https://www.virtualrehab.co. That's co, not com. And we have our white paper on the website. We have all the information about our token sale. We have our Telegram group in case you have any questions about the token sale, the way the VRH token works, how we're integrating the complete solution. Please reach out to us on any of our social media accounts, and we'll be more than happy to help.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day, man.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, man. All right. Okay. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. To join the free community, buy some merch, sponsor the show, or sign up for the newsletter, please visit the website at buildingthefutureshow.com. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.